guys, welcome to this month's Shop My Stash. I usually start these videos kind of overhead, starting with my hands, but today, because this video is a little bit different, I decided to kind of come on here and chat with you guys just a minute before we actually dove into my Shop My Stash. A little late doing this video for the month of April, in large part because I prioritized some other content ahead of this, like drugstore roundups and a dupes video, etc. So a little later in the month than I would typically like to put these up, but I did still want to film a Shop My Stash video. I am not filming a everyday makeup drawer review because I have actually, at the beginning of this month, probably for the last several weeks, done a massive declutter through my entire collection. Those videos will be coming out a little bit later on. I need to probably do a chatty get ready with me video, kind of talking about plans for my channel over the rest of spring and early summer months, because there's some things afoot. But I did want to go ahead and get all my declutters filmed. I was feeling a little overwhelmed with a couple of categories in my collection. And so I have filmed all of those. Those all will be coming out on my channel here. But what it means is that in the process of doing that declutter, I pretty much dismantled my everyday makeup drawer for the month of March. I pulled all of those products out. Some of them made it through, some of them didn't. So it's just going to be way too difficult for me to do an everyday makeup drawer review for the month of March. For this month's Shop My Stash video, I want to do what I've done every month and have a bit of a theme. But this month's theme, I think, is kind of fun, and it's pulling in a style of video that I've seen a few other content creators do. And it's this idea of, if I lost all of my makeup, what would I go and purchase first? So it's an interesting concept to try and figure out, what would you buy? What would you prioritize? What high-end products would you still go and purchase, even though you are going to have to, drop a big chunk of money all at once to purchase, a makeup collection again? And so for me, what I did was I started to think through each category, and rather than thinking of specific products, I would put down, for example, okay, I know I'm going to want a sheer tinted type foundation. I know I'm going to want a glowy foundation, and I know I'm going to want a super long lasting foundation. Like, those are three types of foundations that I would want in my collection. Okay, I know I'm going to want a pink blush, a peach blush, a mauve blush. Okay, though I know I'm going to want those color families in my lipsticks or in my blushes. And then let's really then think about, once I have those categories, what makeup would I plug into those spots? So that's kind of what I've done. What I typically do when I just shop my stash is kind of pick things live, but I've gone ahead and kind of made my list of makeup here. And so I'm going to be going drawer by drawer like I have in the past. You guys are definitely going to be seeing the outcome of my decluttering. So no shocked faces in the comments. There's definitely been some purging in a few categories. But rather than just picking things ad hoc, I really did spend some time and really think about, what would I really think I would purchase. And in some cases I surprised myself, and in other cases I was like, yeah, that's totally what I would do. So we're going to go drawer by drawer. I'm going to talk you through my thoughts in each of these categories. So my plan is at this point to put these products into my everyday makeup drawer and then clear out anything that is not part of this project that I normally just keep in that everyday makeup drawer. I'm going to take all of that out, and we're going to live with these products for the next 2 weeks at least. So I'm going to stop using my Project Pan makeup for the year. I'm going to stop using any new products that I'm testing, and I'm not going to let myself reach into the rest of my collection at all over the next at least 2 weeks. And I'm going to live with this makeup, and I'm going to be able to report back to you guys. Did I do a good job of picking the makeup that I selected? Did I pick too many products? Did I pick not enough products? Are there products that after a week I'm like, oh my gosh, I so missed this. Why didn't I pull this in? Or this is a glaring gap that I missed. So I'll be able to report back out to you guys next month when I do my everyday makeup drawer report out. I've seen a video concept done like this from a lot of creators, but this whole idea of losing your makeup, building a collection, and forcing yourself to use this and nothing but this is definitely inspiration I've taken from Hannah Louise Poston. So if you want to see her take on this idea, I will link her video down below, because I thoroughly enjoyed both her thought process when she was picking her makeup and then some of the check-ins that she's done since then. All right, That was an incredibly long, rambly intro, but I did want to kind of come on here and talk to you guys because this is a slightly different Shop My Stash than I have done for prior months. So let's go ahead and get into the drawers and the makeup that I've selected. All right, guys, so we're starting in slightly different order than we have in the past. Historically, I just work my way through my Alex9 drawers, but today I actually wanted to film this not just like chronologically through my collection, but more in terms of how I would apply products to my face. So we're gonna start with base products first, and then we will move into other makeup next. I also have a glasses of rosé because if we're going to be contemplating the demise of my entire makeup collection and the few products that I get to keep as a result, I figured some wine was in order. Okay, so in terms of primer, here are my thoughts. I definitely wanted a hydrating and glowy base for sure. So a couple of things came to mind for me, and it was these three products here. The number 7 Skin Illuminator, the NYX Hourglass, and then the Becca Backlight priming filter. I love all three of these products, but I don't feel like I would need to purchase immediately all three of these products. And so I ultimately decided to go with the one that was the most hydrating. And so for me, out of this collection, that is this number 7 Skin Illuminator. So this would be my pick for my hydrating glowy primer. So I truly contemplated whether or not I wanted something from this collection here, which is more of hydrating without glow to it. So things like the Smashbox Photo Finish Primerizer, or products that have a little bit more smoothing action to them. And ultimately, I think what I realized is that I can probably get all the hydration and I'm never gonna turn down glow. So I felt like ultimately I didn't necessarily need anything for like right out of the gate from this section. I did, however, choose to pull this in. And this is a bit of a splurge if I'm thinking about having to purchase a ton of makeup right out of the gate, but it is the Flawless Filter from Charlotte Tilbury, and I so love this product. The thought of being without it, like I know myself, I would go buy this product if it wasn't in my collection today. Like I so enjoy this. It's one that has just a smidge of tint to it along with its really pretty glow. It looks fantastic underneath makeup. It looks fantastic as a highlighter on top of makeup. I just use this in so many different ways. I can't imagine being without it. We'll talk about foundation here in just a minute and that is in a different drawer, but let's talk about powders. Powder is one of those things that I feel like I've not been reaching for a ton, but I still want at least one in my collection. I have definitely narrowed down the amount of powders that I have sitting in these drawers, but I ultimately decided like one would be enough for me. Like I could survive on a single powder for quite a while and be okay. I would miss my Hourglass Veil powders for sure, and I would probably grab one of those at some point. At some point, I would probably buy a compact powder that I could put in my purse, but like I said, I'm just not using a lot of powder a lot right now. And so the one that I would pick was actually sitting on my vanity top because I've been using it lately, but this is from Hourglass. This is their Veil Translucent Setting Powder. I can use this on my face. It looks fantastic. I can use this under my eyes and it looks fantastic. It's not drying. It's not heavy. It's just a fantastic powder. And so although it is a little splurgier than some of the drugstore options that I do enjoy, in particular this number 7 a Lift and Luminate Translucent Finishing Powder, I still feel like I would splurge and get this as my powder. There is a drawer off to the side that has my facial sprays in it. So rather than reposition everything real fast, I'm just gonna grab those. I would want 2 types of finishing sprays. One that makes my makeup last longer and a second one that makes my skin glowier. So one that is going to cut down on powderiness, one that I could use to wet eyeshadows, etc. So something with a little bit of glow to it. In terms of ones that make my makeup last longer, definitely this. So this is the makeup finishing spray. This is the Bridal edition from Skindinavia. I love this product. I have sung its praises for the longest time. It really, really makes a difference. And then I thought long and hard about drugstore versus high-end products for a glowy face spray. There's one from Flower Beauty that I really love. There's one from Hard Candy that I really love, but ultimately I decided I would probably go buy this. So this is the Watermelon Ultra Fine Mist from a Glow Recipe. I love the sprayer on this. I love how dewy it makes my skin. I like that it's kind of this biphase oil mix that you shake up, and I love the smell of it also. So it's a very satisfying product to me, and it's worth, in my opinion, a little bit more splurgy of a spend here than buying a drugstore one that I would like, but probably not as much as this. All right, so now we are looking at my foundation and concealer drawer. I've got one little well back here for concealers, and then the rest of these are foundations. So when I thought about the types of foundation that I was gonna want, I kind of realized I wanted four. I wanted something lightweight, so very light coverage, made my skin look great. I wanted something that was medium coverage with a natural finish. I wanted something medium coverage with a glowy finish. And then I wanted something that was like super long wearing, that could be my bulletproof foundation that might give me a little bit more coverage, but I could also trust to last me like 16-hour days. So in terms of my lightweight foundation, there's several that I like, but I know myself, I would go buy this in a heartbeat. I love this foundation from Tilbury. This is our Light Wonder Youth Boosting Perfecting Foundation. I am in the shade Too Fair. I have sung the praises of this so many times. Like when I think about foundations that when I'm going out and I want my skin to just look like its best possible self, but still look like skin, it's this. I have reached for this so many times for like date nights and just like going out with friends, because I just feel like it makes my skin look like its very best possible, and I really like its coverage. I think it's sort of a light to light medium coverage depending on how much you use. In terms of a medium coverage foundation that is glowy, there's quite a few that I like, but the one that I think I would run out and get is from NYX. So this is their Born to Glow foundation, naturally radiant. I'm in the shade Porcelain. I find this to just be such an easy foundation to work with. It's very lightweight, but it gives really good coverage. It doesn't feel heavy. It sets itself down almost on its own. You could use a little bit of powder and that's probably all you would need. I just think this makes my skin look beautiful, but it's giving me more, it's still radiant like the Charlotte Tilbury, but it's giving me a little bit more coverage. So I love this foundation. So that would be my pick for a medium coverage glowy foundation. All right, so in terms of medium coverage natural finish foundations, that's kind of this section here. I kind of was trying to narrow it down, quite frankly, between these two No. 7 foundations. So we've got the Stay Perfect foundation, which is medium coverage, lasts a very long time, or we've got the Lift and Illuminate Triple Action Serum foundation. This one's a little bit more, probably a little lighter coverage, has a very lightweight serum-y texture. Ultimately, what I decided to do was go with the Stay Perfect foundation. I just feel like this one lasts incredibly well on my skin, is incredibly smoothing, nice medium coverage, just goes on like a dream, but it's giving me probably the most natural finish out of all the No. 7 foundations, both the Serum foundation and then also this one here, which is their Protect and Perfect hydrating one, are giving me a little bit more glow. So this would definitely be my pick for a natural finish medium coverage foundation. And although that one lasts incredibly well on my skin, I wanted something that could be maybe even a high medium coverage and then I just knew was bulletproof. So the one that I've picked is this. So this is from Urban Decay. This is their Stay Naked foundation. This is one where I absolutely do need to prep my skin ahead of time in order for it to work its best life. I need to work in sections and use a very tiny amount. If I don't prep my skin, it can look dry, and if I use too much of it, it can look makeup-y. But when I prep my skin and when I use just a small amount of this, it looks like second skin, and it really is bulletproof. It will last me all darn day, and I 100% trust this, especially for travel work scenarios. Plus, this one is in a plastic bottle, which I know annoyed a few people, but I actually find that to make this foundation infinitely more travel friendly. So I really like that. All right, so those are my picks for foundation. In terms of concealer, I wrote down 3 things that I felt like I would want. One would be an everyday sort of lightweight concealer that I could use on its own, independent of reaching for any other foundation products. I like having a concealer that I can use just to cover up problem areas and then just leave my skin alone. I knew I wanted an everyday concealer that was going to just be very easy to use, give me the coverage I wanted, but was going to be wearable with all the foundations I picked. And then third, I knew I was going to want something for spot concealing. So my lightweight pick is from Glossier. This is their stretch concealer. This is one I would use on days where my under eyes needed a little bit more hydration. It's one that I would use when I didn't want to reach for foundation products and I just wanted to do a little bit of spot concealing underneath my eyes and on my face. It's very lightweight, it's very hydrating. Having this in my collection, it really is unique to anything else, and I would miss it if I didn't have it. So I would definitely go and repurchase this. And then in terms of my everyday concealer, it would be this. So this is the number 7 Lift and Luminate Serum Concealer. As I considered everything in my collection, I really narrowed it down to 2 that stood out at me. One was the e.l.f. Flawless Concealer, which is very hydrating, and one was the Serum Concealer from Lift and Luminate. And I ultimately decided I would pick probably just this one out of the gate. I might come back and get the Flawless Concealer at some point, but the Lift and Luminate Concealer would be a fantastic everyday concealer. It would work fantastically with all of the products I have picked for base, and it is more of it's a serum, so it's hydrating, but it's not as dewy as the Glossier. I didn't feel like I needed a second dewy concealer since I had already picked the Glossier one. So that would be my everyday concealer. And then in terms of spot concealing, I would go get this again. This is from CoverGirl. This is their Smoothers Concealer Stick. And I like this just for very basic, more high coverage spot concealing of pimples and breakouts and things like that. I like a higher coverage stick type concealer for this. And this one offers more coverage than the Glossier one. All right, we're gonna bounce from drawer to drawer here. And I'm going to talk blush first. So we're looking at all of my cream blushes now. I've got these organized differently from past videos. All right, so we need to talk about blush, bronzer, and highlighter. I thought about this in terms of both powder and cream products. So we're going to bounce back and forth between drawers as I talk about both the powder and the cream options that I picked. When I thought about blush though in particular, I knew I was going to kind of want 4 color families. I was going to want sort of a coral, I was going to want a neutral, I was going to want a pink, and I was going to want something mauve. When I thought about the sort of coral shade that I was going to want, it's kind of a coral warm rosish shade, and that is this product from M Cosmetics. This is her Serum Milk Drops in Rose Milk. I love this product. I would be very sad if I didn't have one of these in my collection. This color sort of reads like a rosy coral to me, so it's got some warmth in it. It pulls coral, but it's got a hint of rose in it as well. And rather than going very, very sort of, oh gosh, that's really washed out, isn't it? So sorry about that. That was very washed out. So rather than going very, very warm and sort of orangey, I decided to go this direction. To be honest, I probably would have pulled this one from e.l.f. This was actually my first thought, but unfortunately, this shade has been discontinued. In fact, this product has been discontinued. So that was kind of my first thought. And then ultimately, I just decided to go with sort of a warm, rosy coral and get one of these M Cosmetics ones back into my collection. So that would be my first cream blush pick. In terms of a neutral cream blush or liquid blush, I would grab this. This is the Flower Beauty Blush Balm, and this is in the shade Pinched. This is definitely a dupe for the Dusk shade from Glossier, and I like this formula every bit as much. It's got a nice sort of peachy undertone to it. It's a little bit warmer, but still very, very neutral on me. So I would have something sort of corally rose, something a little bit more warmer and neutral. And then I would also want to get a pink. So this is where I would pick the Ulta Beauty Stay Cheeky Liquid Blush in Dusty Pink. This is a shade that I would absolutely want in my collection. I love this. I'm contemplating picking up the 2 other shades that they have. And this would give me a very pretty, glowy, soft pink blush that I think is absolutely stunning. And then I knew I would want a mauve, and I kind of went in this direction. So this is Florence by Mills. This is Zen Z is the color. And this one is sort of a neutral mauve color, but it's definitely a little more cool toned than the first shade that I picked up there from M Cosmetics. So there are the 4 shades, something that's sort of warmer rose corally, something that is a little bit warmer and neutral, something that's pink, and then something that is mauve. So we are looking at my new blush, bronzer, and highlighter drawer. I've actually condensed everything down into one drawer. I have not been reaching for powder products as much as my creams lately, and so I felt like my creams needed expansion and more room to breathe, and so they got a different drawer, and then I condensed my blush, bronzer, and highlight into one drawer. This is all of my blushes back here, highlighters, and then bronzers. So in terms of blush, I really decided I wanted to get 3 powder blushes. I had picked 4 creams, and I feel like that fits kind of what I am thinking, but in terms of powders, I still wanted to have some options, and I knew I wanted a mauve blush, a neutral blush, and then sort of a coral blush. In terms of the mauve blush, a couple things came to mind. One was this Ciate London blush. This was the shade Into Deep, which I think is a really pretty color. It's definitely glowy, and to be honest, I would make sure that all of these blushes that I picked in the powder form had a little bit of a satin or a glowy texture to them. So while I really liked this one, as I was swatching around in my collection, the shade that really read mauve to me the most and that I felt like I would really enjoy on a day-to-day basis is this one from Laura Geller, and this is in the shade Pink Buttercream. And although this looks sort of pinky on my skin tone, because I am as fair as I am, it's kind of a dusty pink, and it actually reads a little bit more mauve than it does pink on me. It's a beautiful glowy blush, lots of high shine finish to it, and so this is ultimately what I decided I would pick from my mauve blush. In terms of neutral blushes, I'm a neutral blush girl. I love neutral blushes. I have quite a few that I absolutely love. I love this new one from e.l.f. in their primer infused blush in Always Hazy. I love this one I got during the holiday time frame from Kiko. To be honest, I might have bought this, but it was limited edition, so I wouldn't be able to get my hands on it. I thought long and hard about this Jouer blush duo that had sort of this peach and this neutral shade, but I was also starting to factor in how much things were going to cost, right? So when I do need to go repurchase all of these things, how much am I paying in total for things? I'd already picked some very expensive base products from Charlotte Tilbury, etc. And ultimately what I realized is that some of my favorite blushes are quite frankly from Essence. And the last 2 tone varieties that I wanted, neutral and coral, are completely covered in their Satin Touch blush. So for my neutral blush, I would buy this. This is their Satin Touch blush in Satin Love. And then for my coral blush, I would buy Satin Coral. And these 2 shades are just stunning. I love how they blend out. And as you can see there, that one's a little more neutral than this pinky one. And this one's a little bit warmer than either one of those. And I feel like that would do me. Like, I could live without a bright pink blush for a while. I could live without a super orangey toned blush for a while. I could live without a brown tone blush. I could live without a lot of other kinds of shades for a period of time. So these would be my 3 powder blush picks. In terms of cream bronzer, I don't have a ton. It's really just this little well here. So I've got the Undone Beauty one, I've got a travel size of the Milk Makeup bronzing stick, and then I have this from Milani. Quite frankly, this would be what I would buy if I could, but they've discontinued it. It's a contour shade, but it's a contour shade that on me, when I blend it out, just kind of looks like a natural bronze shade. I find that sometimes cooler tone bronze shades or contour shades end up looking like really nice cool tone bronzers on me. If I couldn't find this online, I would want some sort of liquid bronzer or cream bronzer, and I think I would probably just break down and buy the Charlotte Tilbury Contour Wand. It looks really dark and deep when you swatch it, but then you blend it out and it just blends into this like perfect neutral bronze that's not too intense for me. It's not too warm, it's not too cool. I very much love this product, so this would be one that I would pick. All right, so in terms of powder contour, I knew I was going to want 2 types of products. I was going to want a glowy bronzer and I was going to want a matte bronzer. There are 2 drugstore options that really just popped to the top of my thinking. For glowy, Flower Heat Wave Luminous Bronzer. If you guys have been following my channel for any length of time, you know how much I love this bronzer. It's so smoothing. It's really, really glowy. It's a lovely undertone. It's not too warm. It's not too cool. And then the matte bronzer I would go and buy would be from Milani. They call this their Silky Matte Powder, and I completely agree. This one is also not too warm on me. It really has a nice smoothing texture to it. It's got a little bit more of a neutral / yellow undertone, whereas that one was a little cooler and rosy. So I feel like I have two different undertones as well. So this one from Milani would be my other powder bronzer pick. And then I really had a hard time thinking about highlighters and cream highlighters because there's so many here that I absolutely love. I love this one from Charlotte Tilbury, but I think at the end of the day, when I really think about it, I would want something glossy, and then I would want a cream highlighter. And so for glossy, the easy answer for me would be this Flower Beauty Day Glow. While I like the RMS Beauty one, I like this one from Flower. Hi, Finn. Every bit as much. And like I said, while I like the one from RMS, I feel like this one from Flower gives me that sort of glossy vibe that I would be looking for. And then I would get the Heaven's Hue highlighter from Stila. I would get the shade Kitten. I love how this goes on my cheeks. I feel like it gives a very wet look without actually being truly glossy and dewy the way that the Flower one is. This one definitely sets down. It's sort of a cream to powder texture, so it works with all types of makeup. So I absolutely love this product, and I can't imagine myself without it. So those would be my two cream highlighter picks. Once again, I'm not trying to go super crazy here because I'm trying to be realistic that I would love Flexitarian. Would I buy Flexitarian over these two? Probably not. I love this ColourPop light stick in the shade Earth. Would I buy that over the Stila one? Probably not. And then in terms of powder highlight, I knew I was going to want something that was a little bit more natural, a little bit more everyday, not super intense. And then I was going to want something that was a little bit more intense and glowy. So for my more natural highlighter, I ended up thinking about this one from Milani. This is their Afterglow Luminous Highlight in 01 Strobe Light. And this one is just, it's so pretty. It's natural. It's not the most intense blinding highlight of life, but it just melts into the skin so incredibly well. It's just, it's stunning. I much prefer this to the other formulas that they released this year still. I just think it's a very underrated product at the drugstore. I don't hear enough people talk about it, and I absolutely love it. And then in terms of a very strong strobe highlight, I have to pick the one from Ofra and Samantha March. This is the Start Inspired highlighter, and I feel like this one just covers the bases in terms of a more warm toned highlighter or more pinky toned highlighter, or as I swirl them all together, what I get is a very neutral sort of champagne highlight. As you can see, it's just a lot more blinding and a lot more intense than the Milani highlight, but it still blends into the skin incredibly, incredibly well. So this would definitely cover my needs in terms of blinding powder highlights. All right, so let's pause in this drawer. We're not quite ready to talk about eyeshadows. I kind of want to talk about some more basic products like eyeshadow primers and mascaras and brow products and things like that. In terms of brows, I kind of thought long and hard about this, whether or not I would buy a more chubby style brow pencil, or I would buy a pomade, or I would buy a thinner brow like pencil. And I think what I ultimately decided is that I would like to probably have a thinner brow pencil. That's my hypothesis, but it's been a while since I've used a very thin brow pencil. So what I would probably buy would be the NYX Micro Brow pencil. It's affordable and it has lots of different colors, so I'm sure I could find something that works. I don't have one of those in my collection. The only micro brow pencil I have in my collection is one that I picked up at a Ulta sale at some point not that long ago, and this is the Brow Wiz from Anastasia in the shade medium brown. So I want to test my hypothesis if on micro brow pencils versus a typical brow, like thicker brow pencil. I've been using a thicker brow pencil for probably the last year, maybe even longer. And so it's been a while since I've used one, and I feel like this is probably what I would prefer. So I I don't know. That's a hypothesis. We're going to test it as part of this pick. So I don't have the NYX one. I didn't want to run out and buy a NYX one since I had this one. But if all of this disappeared, I would probably start at the drugstore for brow because I'm just not super passionate about paying up for brow products. And then no shock here. In terms of a brow gel, I would just go buy $1 Go Brow from AOA Studio. I have the shade Medium Brown. I love this fiber brow gel. And then in terms of mascaras, I would definitely be getting these two from CoverGirl again. I have repurchased these already on my own, and I don't see myself like jumping to high-end mascara in this kind of scenario. So I would get the CoverGirl Exhibitionist for my upper lashes and the Clump Crusher for my lower lashes. And then in terms of eyeshadow primer, I thought long and hard about what I would purchase. And I kind of feel like, at least where I am today, I would go get this e.l.f. Putty Eye Primer. And I have the shade Rose, but it comes in a number of different colors. I find this is just a base that gives me a little bit of color, helps neutralize the veining and discoloration on my eyelids, and really sets down to a texture that makes it very easy to blend eyeshadows on top, but really does help the eyeshadows adhere and last longer as well, and it's very affordable. So ultimately, you know, I debated going and getting Eden from Urban Decay because I love that and I've bought it for years, but I kind of feel like I would go this direction. All right, are you ready to talk eyeshadow? This is probably the category that took me the longest to pick. I thought it was going to be lipsticks, but actually it ended up being eyeshadow. So there are some single shadows as well as some palettes that I would purchase, and then let's talk about eyeliner kind of towards the end here. In terms of single eyeshadows, one that I just can't see myself being without is a cream one, and that is from Charlotte Tilbury. I have two of her Eyes to Mesmerize in the shade Betty, which is more of a bronze, but Marie Antoinette is like my perfect taupey bronze, which I kind of prefer over a warm bronze. This is just a shade that looks beautiful all over the lid. It's just like the perfect single shadow look. It gives enough depth and dimension that I feel like it's, you know, doing something for my eyes, but it's not too dark, it's not too intense, it locks into place. I like this as a base underneath other eyeshadows as well. So I just don't feel like I have another product like this in my collection, and I would 100% miss this. So this, actually, I picked probably, this may have been my first eyeshadow pick. It immediately came to mind. From in this drawer, there were two other products that I thought of that I would probably get fairly quickly. These are from Essence. They're incredibly affordable. They're their melted chrome eyeshadows. I have two shades. The pinky shade is Zinc About You, and then Ironic, which is the more taupey shade. These are sort of a, I don't know, cream powder hybrid, and they are so foiled and so intense. Like, I still can't get over it. These little guys are like $3.99, I think is what they are. So that's the pinkier, mauvier tone shade. And then here is that like taupe shade that I absolutely love. That's a little bit more silvery and brighter. So those shades are just fantastic, and they're so affordable. Like, I would absolutely go out and get these two shades again. And then I kind of thought I was done, but then I stared at this drawer for a while longer and I realized there was one other product in here that I would 100% miss. And this is one of the Hourglass Scattered Lights, and this is in the shade Smoke. It's that taupey shade again. I am a sucker for taupe in all of its forms, but whereas the Charlotte Tilbury one is a cream and it's just kind of a nice metallic, and the one from Essence is more of a shiny chrome, this is one that has a really pretty sparkly like glitter to it. It's like, I refer to it as adult glitter. It's not super chunky, it's very refined, and so it gives you a very shiny glittery effect. I can do it very intense, or I love just taking a little bit of it and just putting it over the top of other eyeshadows as a sheer wash, and it just amps up the shine. And I don't know, I find myself reaching for this even when it's not part of my everyday makeup drawer. I find myself putting this in a travel makeup bag a lot. So I would miss this. I would buy this shade. I love the other shade that I have, but like the Smoke's where it's at. So the other thing that I realized that I would do would be to place an order for some single eyeshadows. So I've got some eyeshadow palettes that I would buy again, but I would definitely place an order with Makeup Geek. I have so enjoyed this color story that I've built with sort sort of the mauve tones and the cool tone browns and the berry. I would want to place an order from Makeup Geek in general for some single shadows, and I so love how this palette turned out that I feel like I would have like the perfect cool toned and mauvey berry shades if I just remade this palette. And then I would also place an order for Sydney Grace. I actually thought long and hard about whether or not I should put the Enduring Love palette in this video, but it's fairly new to me, and for as much as I love it, as much as I loved using it, I did a video with like 7 looks using that palette. I will link it down below. I think I would probably order some singles, and I kind of thought about singles from her at the end, actually, after I'd already picked all my other single shadows, all my other palettes, and I ultimately decided that these are the 9 colors that I would probably order from her. Some warm toned sort of corals, and then some nice neutrally sort of mid-tone browns. So here are the shades all swatched. I will link the shades in this order down in the description box. So I just really love the color combo. I feel like these are the kinds of warms I like. They've got a little bit of a pinky undertone, especially for these 2 shades. Then I've got sort of a cooler, I've got sort of a rosy neutral, a more golden neutral, and more of a cool toned neutral. And then I've got 3 mid-tone shades that I absolutely love. So that is the shadow palette that I would put together. And then here are the shades from Makeup Geek that I would pick that are more of that plummy, mauvey sort of, and then also some more cool tone shades. So there is Makeup Geek. So here are the 2 palettes side by side. I really love how they actually go together as well. I think there'd be a lot of fun shades. Heck, I really like these 2 more bright shades that are in here. I think those would be really pretty as a look together. Okay, so in terms of eyeshadow palettes, this was tough because a couple of the palettes that I really love the most have actually been discontinued. One that I would absolutely repurchase if I could would be the Sultry palette from Anastasia, but unfortunately that wouldn't be an option. So I started thinking about the palettes that I absolutely love, that I felt like from the single shadows that I had picked, I wouldn't have covered or I would want to have anyway. And so one that came to mind was from Persona. I've talked about how this is one of my favorite palettes in general. This is the Identity 1 palette. I've traveled with this a ton. I love the colors in here. The performance of these shimmer shades is just it's top notch, so incredibly smoothing on the eyes. And then this also gives me some of the deeper colors, quite frankly, that aren't in the palettes that I put together. So I wouldn't mind having this open alongside any of the palettes I had put together from Sydney Grace and Makeup Geek. And then I thought long and hard about whether or not I would go and pull the Tartelette in Bloom palette. I stared at it for a long time. It's one of my favorite go-to travel palettes, but I feel like a lot of the colors that are in here were actually in the either Identity palette that I pulled or even in some of the Makeup Geek shadows that I had picked. So ultimately I decided I wouldn't immediately go out and purchase this. I probably would at some point, but I think what I would actually purchase ahead of that would be this one from Aether Beauty. And this is her Rose Quartz palette. I have just fallen so hard for this palette. I love the color story. I love that I've got these sort of glimmery, shimmery top coat type shades in here that have like a little bit of like micro glitter. They almost act like the Hourglass scattered light shades, and so I love them. I love that I've got very basic neutrals, very creamy shades. Her formula on her just normal shimmer shades reminds me a heck of a lot of the ones in Persona. Just very easy to work with, very easy to blend, incredibly like smoothing. And then I love that I've got some true grays in here, which I hadn't pulled from any other palette, and I would want some grays. So I kind of feel like this palette jumped ahead in terms of things I would repurchase ahead of some of my favorite palettes like the Tartelette in Bloom. Not gonna lie, still super sad about the Sultry. And then I stared long and hard at my drugstore drawer as well, thinking through, okay, is there a ColourPop palette I would want to repurchase? And you know, I might have gone after the Fame palette, but they've discontinued it. I thought about those larger pan e.l.f. eyeshadows, and ultimately what I decided was there was one palette that I probably just loved more than all of those, and that was the Love in London from BH Cosmetics. It's giving me really nice neutrals. It's giving me some interesting warm neutrals that I don't feel like I've pulled in any of the other palettes. Kind of go that like mustardy brown color. It gives me a really nice gold, which I don't think I've pulled yet. It's also giving me some rose gold, a really fun burgundy purple type shade, as well as some really fantastic neutrals for blending. I love the shimmer formula in here. I just think it is phenomenal. Like, these shadows are so good, guys. So good. I can't even get over it. And then the mattes are also completely blendable. So I love this palette. I would rebuy the Love in London very quickly. And then a last eyeshadow palette that kind of came to the top of my radar was this one from Flower Beauty. I thought it would be really nice, this is a Jungle Lights palette, I thought it would be really nice to have really wet, high shine, creamy, like intense metallics that I could pull from. These honestly almost feel like cream shadows, and they are some of the most intensely pigmented shades in my collection. Like, I can't even begin to express to you how foiled these are. And I love the color assortment in here with a green and a rusty red and a gold and a murkier sort of plum purple shade. Like, this palette and this formula is so good. Like, it kicks the high-end eyeshadow formulas almost, it kicks their butts, honestly. So in order to have a really foiled high shine formula, I would repurchase this. I love this palette from Flower Beauty. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about is eyeliners. I am so rarely wearing traditional eyeliner that I just can't quite see myself reaching or buying a black right away, and I can't see myself buying a liquid liner right away. I might eventually get around to it, but I'm just not wearing them often enough to warrant it. What I'm reaching for is very creamy pencils, and the formula I love probably more than any are the ones from Julep, the When Pencil Met Gel. I think they have some absolutely beautiful colors. So I would get two matte shades, one in a rich brown that is very dark and could almost act as my black liner. And then I would get the shade Gray Clay to be like a soft, smoky gray color. And those are both matte formulas. And then we get two shimmer formulas. I would get Bronze Shimmer, which is going to be a little bit lighter and have a really nice bronze undertone with a little bit of a shimmer formula to it. And then I would get Smoky Taupe Shimmer, which is going to be like that cool toned taupe shade. So there are the four neutral shades that I would buy from Julep, and I absolutely love these, and I feel like this would cover me for eyeliner for a while. Would I miss other shades? Sure, but I feel like this gives me the basics that I reach for most frequently. All right, guys, final category, lipstick. So I've got it zoomed in on my drugstore lipstick and then just some of my other maybe high-end ones that aren't up above, rather than switching back and forth between my sort of liquid lipsticks and my higher-end lipsticks and this. I'm just gonna sort of stay here and let's talk lipstick in general. Lipstick's one of those things where I know I wouldn't be content with just like one or two shades. I knew I was gonna wanna have a full spectrum to match different eye looks. I knew I was gonna wanna have different finishes, both matte and glossy sheer lips, and then glosses, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And then I was also going to need a few lip liners that I rely on for a lot of different looks. So in terms of lipsticks, here's what I was thinking. I was going to want a pinky nude, a light nude, so something very pale, a very warm toned nude, a deep nude, so something that read sort of medium to deep, but still had sort of nude lipstick qualities, neutral lipstick qualities. I was gonna want a mauve, and I was gonna want a red. In terms of a pinky nude, I have to do Pillow Talk from Charlotte Tilbury. It's just too pretty. It's a great, great neutral on me. It reads very mauve on some people, but on me, it just reads like a really nice pinky neutral shade. So I would definitely rebuy Pillow Talk. In terms of a very light nude, my favorite in my collection is from Flower Beauty. I love Flower Beauty lipsticks in general, but this shade Peachy Nude is like, it's just light enough that it doesn't read like concealer lips on me. It's just pinky coral enough that it gives a little life to my face, but it is still very pale on me. It's as pale as I want to go. And so when I think of like my favorite light pale lipstick, this would definitely be one that I would immediately want to purchase. And then in terms of warm nudes, I looked at a lot of the ones that were in here, but ultimately I realized that I was just going to miss Charlotte Tilbury's Super Cindy. This is probably my second most reach for shade, and it's definitely more warm toned and a little deeper than the peachy nude from Flower. So you can definitely see these are nudes, but they've got a little bit more depth. And this one leans a little more orangey and a little warmer on me and looks fantastic with warm toned looks. So I would repurchase Super Cindy. In terms of a deep nude, I have to reach for a standby, one that I absolutely love. This is from Bare Minerals. This is their Gen Nude line. It's a liquid lipstick, but it's more of that moussey texture. So I would compare this to something like the Ofra liquid lipsticks or the M Cosmetics Infinite Lip Clouds. Very similar formulas. This is the shade Bossy. This has just been a go-to travel work shade for me. It's deeper and darker on me than the ones we just swatched. And I love this formula. It lasts really well on me. It's more of a high impact lip than any of these lighter shades on me. And I don't know, like I would miss Bossy. I would miss the formula and I would miss being able to pull in this deeper nude. So Bossy is definitely high on my list to purchase. And then in terms of mauves, what I realized was that I wanted a true mauve. I've got a lot of shades from Flower that lean a little bit mauvey, but they're neutral. And I feel like what I would really want to purchase would be a true mauve. And so what I ended up selecting was this. So this is from Milani. This is part of their Bold Matte collection. And this is the shade I Am Fabulous. And it's that true murky mauve color that's very purple leaning. It's definitely more cool toned, and I really feel like this kind of mauve shade is something that I would want in my collection. And then in terms of reds, I didn't want to buy a bunch of reds, and so I debated back and forth, would I want like more of a cherry red, or would I want a classic blue-based red, or a brick red? And ultimately what I decided is that my favorite reds, I kind of feel like are more of those orange reds. And so a third Charlotte Tilbury makes its entrance, and part of the reason I have chosen some more affordable drugstore products along the way is because when I really thought about lipsticks I would want to repurchase, I realized I would want to get 3 from Charlotte Tilbury, and that would be a hefty chunk of money to spend out of the gate. But the shade Tell Laura is one of my favorite like true orangey reds. I feel like it just brightens my face. I like its tomato red qualities as opposed to being super blue based. So those are the 6 lipsticks that I would purchase out of the gate. Now, there's a caveat here, is that I think I would want some true like glossy lipstick balm hybrids. So kind of think along the lines of these Colory Shines from L'Oreal. I wouldn't be repurchasing these because they aren't cruelty free. So a couple things came to mind because I do like that sheer glossy formula. One would be from Kiko Milano. This is the Shiny Lip Stilo in 01. I hauled this spring. It's more of a cool toned, shiny sheer lipstick, and I really like its undertone. And then I also think I would get a more brownie tone shade in this family, and I would get one from ColourPop. So this is their Just a Tint in Z Boys, and this one is probably the browniest of the lipsticks that I've brought to date, and I kind of felt like I was missing something in this brown tone family. But I sometimes feel like brown lipsticks in full opacity can be a little overwhelming for my skin tone, and so having something in this sheer formula from ColourPop seemed like a good solution to that. Plus I really love these Just a Tint lip balms. They're very affordable and I love them. I think they're fantastic. So there are my lipstick and sort of lip balmy type options. All right, gloss was tough because I have glosses that have decent amount of pigmentation, I have glosses that are more sheer, and I have glosses that have shimmer and ones that are more cream. And there's a lot of products in here that I really, really love. And even as I'm sitting here saying, here are the 4 that I would repurchase, I'm staring at one that I was like, oh, should I make you a 5th? I'm thinking about you. Okay, let's come back to that one. Okay, so I knew I wanted to get a pink nude gloss, I wanted to get a shimmery nude gloss, I wanted to get a warm nude, and then I wanted to get a coral. So that was kind of my thinking before I even opened this drawer. In terms of a pinky nude, I would grab this one from Essence. This is the Shine 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 and Happiness in a Bottle. I love this formula. I love this color. It's got enough pigmentation that I can wear it on its own, but I can also sheer it out, and it looks really pretty over cool toned lip looks. So very affordable too. I think these are like $2.99. So Happiness in a Bottle from Essence for sure. In terms of a warm nude, the thing that kind of jumped out at me was this one from Makeup Revolution. This is the I Heart Chocolate Lip Gloss in Chocolate Orange. This one is a little bit more pigmented, so I don't know as if I would layer this one a ton. I'd probably just wear it on its own, but I suppose I could layer it over the top of the more matte lipsticks from Charlotte Tilbury. So there is the more warm tone shade versus the more pink tone shade. And then I knew I would want a sheerer sort of neutral shimmer gloss. When I wrote this down, I said I would go and rebuy the original Fenty Beauty Gloss. It's actually a very affordable product, especially for how much you get. So Fenty Glow, I like wearing on its, I like wearing on its own. But it's also a really nice layering gloss. You can see it's a lot more sheer than the first two that I swatched. So it's just a phenomenal product. I absolutely love it, and I would probably get this shade. I debated long and hard about the Milani Ludicrous because I think these are very similar formulas, but ultimately I just decided I would probably get the Fenty one. I should also add at a price per ounce perspective, they're almost the same price. And then kind of a bit of a surprise gloss for me was I felt like I wanted a coral, and when I said that, I thought I was gonna reach for this Marc Jacobs gloss in coral, and honestly, the more I thought about it, the more I swatched things in my drawer. This one from Persona kind of rose to the top, and this is their shade Coral, and it's a really interesting formula that's sheer, and it's like a tomato red, but very sheer. And so it's kind of that same sort of undertone that I love so much in the Tell Laura shade from Charlotte Tilbury, but it's in a sheer gloss format, which makes it a very wearable sort of orangey coral red color for more everyday use. And I feel like it would layer really well over that lipstick as well. So those are the four glosses I picked. The one that jumped at me right as soon as I opened this drawer was this Kosas lip oil in Dip, because oh, do I love this, and it's so hydrating, and do I want you? That is so tempting. I haven't picked a lip oil, although it's kind of a lip oil gloss hybrid. Pretty, but I will probably be okay with the four that I picked. But this might be a quick purchase afterwards because my heart just like leapt towards it as I opened this drawer. Don't get me wrong, I love other shades in this drawer a ton. I'd probably get this Essence, let's see, with So Into It shade, this sort of more cool tone brown shade very quickly. I would probably also go and get the Marc Jacobs gloss in French Tickler, which is a clear gloss that I love. There's other products in here that I absolutely adore and love as well, but I think I'm gonna stick with those four. Stick to my guns. In terms of lip pencils, I kind of thought of three. I knew I would want a pinky nude, a deep nude, and a brownie nude. And I feel like that would cover me. So I reached for Charlotte Tilbury's Pillow Talk. It's probably one of my most used liners. It is an absolute nub compared to the other ones that I have selected. This is newer to my collection, so this is Iconic Nude from her, and I really like that this is brown, but it's got a little bit of a rosy brown undertone to it that I feel like makes it a wearable brown for me. And then in terms of a deep nude, this is Grunge from ColourPop. I almost pulled this as a lip pencil, lippy stick as well, but I figured by pulling the pencil, I could leverage it both in pencil form and then all over my lid. So there are the three lip liners that I would pull. Pillow Talk from Charlotte Tilbury, Iconic Nude from Charlotte Tilbury, and Grunge from ColourPop. All right, guys, so that is all the things that I would pick. I feel like I've been talking for a while because I wanted to explain my thought process. Let's go ahead and load up the drawer so you can see how everything looks. All right, guys, so here's where we're sitting. I've had to organize my drawer a little differently, and I kind of like how it's looking, to be honest. I did go ahead and put the Skindinavia setting spray back here. I could still get to it, and rather than putting my primers back here, which is usually where I stash them, I went ahead and put my primers and foundations all here. I slipped the Charlotte Tilbury contour wand here because I think it just fits better in this area. We'll see if that throws me off, because this little section here is where I've got my two powder bronzers. I've got my highlighters, both cream and powder, and then I've got my blushes, both cream and powder here. This is just a different organization for me than normal, so it'll be interesting to see how I reach for things. I did go ahead, I moved everything out of here that was in here before. The exception was some blotting papers, which, you know, I'm not counting tools. I'll still be able to use all my eyeshadow brushes, face brushes, beauty sponges, the whole 9 yards. As part of this process. And then I left the lip balm in here that I'm just trying to use up. Oh, wait, that should go down here. Yeah, that's better. So I've got my eyeliners and my brow products, my concealers, all in this section here, which I think actually works pretty well. I can easily see and grab everything. And then I've got my eyeshadows where they typically are, the potted ones up here in the front, and then the palettes back here. And then I've got my lip products over here, traditional lipsticks here. So then I've got balmy lipsticks here, a lip gloss here, because that's just where it fit the best. I've got my glosses, and then that one Bare Mineral shade goes back here along with my 3 lip pencils. I have totaled this up. It wouldn't be a cheap spend if I had to rebuy all of this. It's around $1,100 for me to purchase everything in this drawer. So that's a little jaw-dropping when you kind of think about spending over $1,000 in makeup. I could potentially get that number down and just focus in on drugstore, but I just didn't give myself that strict of a guideline. I wasn't looking to be, you know, under 500 bucks for a full face of makeup. Maybe I'll give myself that challenge at some point and really focus in on drugstore makeup, etc. But one thing I wanted to do before I wrap up this video is kind of show you all of my eyeshadow palettes all laid out next to one another. So there they all are. I actually really like how this is looking. I've got nice neutrals in here. I've got some really pretty coral shades. I've got some mauves. I've got some pinks. I've got super foily shades, as well as more satin type textures. I am excited by every single one of these palettes and can see myself reaching for them quite a lot. So like I said, my plan is to use this makeup and nothing but this makeup for the next 2 weeks. And that'll give me a true sense of, do I feel like I have really thought through everything? Have I picked all the products I would really need to pick? Are there things in here that were superfluous, unnecessary, etc.? So that will be a fun report out next month for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. A little bit different than my typical Shop My Stash, but I really thought this was a fun video concept to explore, both from a creative picking of products perspective, as well as this idea of what happens when I use only these products for the next few weeks. Let me know down in the comments below if you enjoyed this style of video. I can see myself doing this through a couple of different lenses potentially in the future. So look forward to chatting with you down in the comments. I hope you're having a great week.